Dr. Dan Schaefer. Dr. Dan has been a very long time friend of mine, and he works with professional athletes around the country. He works with golfers, he works with runners, he works with triathletes. So he works with a variety of different athletes, and he helps them to improve their game. And Dan, you could just tell us a little bit more about that to start.
Okay. The thing we look at, I'll come back to, I wrote a book called Click, The Competitive Edge. Chad Pennington wrote the foreword to the book. He was a quarterback for the Jets and the Dolphins. And I said to Chad, what do you need to do? What do you want to do? And he said, I want to increase my concentration. And I said, okay. I said, what gets in the way of your concentration? He said, well, I get distracted. And I said, okay, what distracts you? He said, well, among other things, the way I talk to myself. And so we find that there are a whole wide variety of things that derail athletes, both when they're in the middle of their competition, a week before, 2 weeks before, a month before, 6 months before, because with triathletes that I've worked with, they've anticipated these events for a long time, and they have a game plan. And you know, I had one guy who went out to the Midwest for a triathlon, and he said to me, I had to use my plan B. I said, what was the plan B? He said, I had to put aside everything that I had planned to do. I said, why was that? He says, well, they ran out of water on a run. So it was like, hello, how do you do that? But again, it's being prepared to deal with it. But I'll take you through some, just for the runners in the group, I'll take you through just some of the things. I have one client who's I've been working with her now for 20 years. She's an ultramarathon runner. She's run to Badwater, which is 135 miles through Death Valley in the summer. And she ran that 3 or 4 times. She's run some other enormously long events. She became an MMA cage fighter, and we did hypnosis over the phone for 3 weeks before her last fight, which we won in 49 seconds. So the competition was, she was already in that ring, in that fight, long before her opponent ever even thought about it. And so the fact is, can you use visualization to prepare yourself for an event? Can you, in fact, go out and run a triathlon tonight, starting at 8 o'clock and finish at 9, by taking yourself through every single part of that race? And you can, because your subconscious mind will let you do that. But I'll give you some for the runners. Well, everybody's a runner. This is Jody's record. She ran 212 miles from Port Jervis, New York to Cape May Lighthouse in 55 hours and 49 minutes. Included in that time was 1 hour and 49 minutes of sleep. She ran another one, 372 miles in 6 days from Port Jervis, New York to Cape May Lighthouse and back up to Franklin Township, which was 1 2/3 of the state of New Jersey. But she's completed Death Valley completions 2002, 2004, 2005. But what was interesting was she started to talk about what distracted her. And she said to me on this first run that I did with the Badwater, she said she had 2 vans, 2 support crews. And she said the support crews had done something to throw her off that could have gotten her disqualified. And she's a Marine. And she promises me that any of my clients or future clients who she talks to, she will not use any of her normal language. But she said to me, she said, I got really very angry with her. So I said, so what was the problem? She said, I realized I carried anger for 135 miles. And she said, it drained me. And so she designed my trunk card, which is a card that an athlete will fill out before an event, and put on that card anything that could possibly derail that person during that event. Anything that she could think about that would take her off the focus of the run. And then somebody has to go back, you put it in the trunk of your car and you slam it. And then as you're running, if these things come up, you know, a situation with a relationship, a business situation, whatever it is, if you snap your fingers and you go trunk, 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 your subconscious mind, which is a lot of where I work, would allow you to put off thinking about it while you're running so that you can go back to the trunk of your car and pick the card up. Now, the important thing with this is that you can write it on the card, your subconscious mind will play along with it, it'll let you divert it. But if you don't go back to that card and pick that card out and talk about the issues that are on the card, your subconscious mind says, I'm never doing this again. Don't fool around with me. So what I find is that people, when they begin with help to use their subconscious mind effectively, all kinds of interesting stuff happens. I have a golfer right now who can go out and play a round of golf tonight at 9 o'clock and finish a whole 18 holes of golf in an hour, playing it exactly at the score he wants to run. I have a swimmer for the triathletes in the room. I have a swimmer who practices her events. She's got a scholarship to a major university for swimming. And she's 1 second away from Olympic qualification, but she will run those events overnight. And she'll do them in an hour with me on the phone, and she will be in the water. She can do it a couple of ways: be in the water, feel the water, see herself in the water. But at the end of the day, your subconscious mind, interestingly enough, never knows whether you actually ran the race that you're visualizing or whether you just thought about it. And so it's almost, to me, perfect practice. I've used it with slalom skiers, MMA cage fighters, football players for sure, basketball players, soccer players, goalies, particularly in ice hockey goalies. I worked with them for 25 years. So the thing to keep in mind is that what do these people use to give themselves an edge? And what can you take from today to you give yourself an edge? Well, it's very interesting. I said first thing you need to do is identify what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, tastes like, and smells like when you're performing at your best. What's it like? Because until you know what it feels like when you're performing at your best, I think it's very hard to identify when you're not. And that's what you want to try to control. So I said to my goalie, and this kid had gotten drafted by the NHL team. I said to him, what's it like when you perform at your best? He said, oh, that's easy. He said, I don't hear any crowds. He said, the stadium can be full. It can be screaming. I don't hear any crowds. The puck is the size of a dinner plate, and the game moves very slowly. He said, any one time one of those three things change, I know I'm losing my concentration. I said, what do you do? He gave me the classic answer. He said, I hope that it comes back. I said, let me assure you that hope is not a strategy. You need a way to get it back. So here's a very quick tip right now for everybody on the call. Just push your tongue up onto the roof of your mouth and try to think of something. When your tongue is on the roof of your mouth, you can't think of anything. It's amazing. So you can control negative self-talk instantly the minute you hear it, but you have to hear it. And you might not want to think about it during a race, but it may come a week before. It may come on a plane flight out to where you're going. It may have, but what it is that negative self-talk will contaminate your performance every single time. And so the question I always ask people is, do you want to listen to it or do you want to not listen to it? And if you don't want to listen to it, you need to come up with another station to change it to. So what I do, and I'll make this analogy with hockey players, and you can relate it back to Hillary, is there any way that you could put that survey up online on the
Sure. Hold on a minute.
Why
Let
don't
me
we
go
do
ahead.
that? We'll work through the survey.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep. So the people have something to work with and to follow through with.
Okay, hold on. All right. Let me share my screen and get out of Outlook.
I think the attachment's in Outlook.
Yeah, I have it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
do you
So
guys
we
see
move
this?
it up.
All right.
So stop right where you are. So the question is what, don't move it up yet. Describe your tri performance. One sentence is sufficient. What obstacles or challenges or struggles are you regularly up against with your swim, your bike, or your run? That's during the race. That's before the race. That's when you're training for the race. And then the question is, what would you like to see happening in 6 months to a year? Well, every one of my clients is in 2025 working backwards. So let me explain how the subconscious mind works. One of the things it does is it must act out every thought, image, or idea you put into it. So if you say you want to swim a particular distance in a particular time frame, you want to put the time frame on it. You want to say, okay, I want to swim this in 10 minutes or 15 minutes or a half hour, however long it would be. And then as you're practicing this visually, seeing yourself in the water, there's a couple of ways you can do that when you're visualizing a swim, for example. You can actually be in the water and see yourself in the water. You can watch yourself on a TV screen in the water. You can watch yourself as if you were being viewed by a helicopter from on top. You can watch yourself swim from underneath, looking up, or you can watch yourself on the dock or the beach coming in where you're going to end up. Now, I had a woman who was a triathlete who I think Hillary referred me to years ago. And she said, I always get concerned in the swim that I'm going to get run over by the people behind me. And she says, I keep thinking about that as I'm swimming, and I stop and I stop and I stop. I said, well, why do you want to visualize yourself there? Why don't you see yourself? Why don't you just be standing on the beach watching yourself swim in? And she started to visualize herself swimming in without any of the obstructions. So what that does is kind of pre-programs the subconscious mind to think about whatever way you want to think about it. Now, does this sound like BS to people? I'm sure it does. I'm sure people, and the reason people who visualize don't talk about it, it's because they don't want to give their edge away. I mean, I have a baseball player right now who just hit 2 or 3 home runs, and he says to me, I don't tell anybody, but when I go to sleep, I visualize the home runs. I don't visualize the singles or the doubles. I visualize the home runs. Now, it just so happened that he was playing on the scouts team for the Yankees, playing in Yankee Stadium. He had a home run in Yankee Stadium. So here's where we come down. Let's stay where we are here.
Oh, over here? Okay.
Yeah. So you're standing on a beach, seeing yourself enter the water. You look out in the water, and I tell people, look out into the water and see it's covered with floating debris, 50-gallon drums, railroad ties, sticks of garbage. You wouldn't go swim through that. Well, what if those things are in the water when you get in and you don't see them? What if they're in your mind and you don't see them? So how do you get away from that? So it's discovering your mind game. And most of the people that I work with, it's a very short period of time. You get your mind game down, how it works, and then you manage it as you go forward. But I do work with people privately with this. So Hillary's aware of that. But the survey, can I move this screen? I guess not. Okay.
Oh, I should. Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. So if you describe your mind game and do this for yourself, what does it look like? What does it take? Does it take your time, relax, imagine yourself? We do this under hypnosis. I have a hybrid hypnosis strategy that I use over the phone. Very simply, leave it right there, Hillary. I use a hybrid hypnosis strategy over the phone that allows a person to go out and swim each one of these events, or the bike event, or the run. And, so where do you want to be 5 years from now and 1 year from now? So what time do you want to be swimming it at? So when you go out to 2025 and you say, I want to be running a triathlon at X time, break it down to the 3 events, your subconscious mind says, oh, that's what you want? So now we start to work on the way it goes, work that way. The 1 year from now, you work, I'm sorry about the phone, but I can't turn it off. So it's moving backwards from 5 years out to now. And then you come back to 1 year. And so you can pretty much time it. But what happens is your subconscious mind will work on it while you're doing everything else. And it's what I find what happens frequently with athletes. And if you send me an email, I'll send you a survey that's called You Incorporated. It has you seeing yourself as running your own business. Student athletes use this all the time. So it's you make business decisions. So what business decision do you make? Is water training a business decision? If you're seeing your triathlon as a part of your business, yes. So we also look for business disruptions. So somebody will be thinking about their business and it will impact them on their run, or impact them on the swim, or impact them on the bike. And so the point is that and if anybody here has ever said to themselves and told themselves what they don't want to have happen, that's a killer, because your subconscious mind never understands a negative command. So if somebody stands up, ask somebody who's played golf, who stands up over a water hole, tees a ball up and says, I don't want to hit the ball in the water. They know where it's going. It's going right in the water. But if this woman who I worked with was talking about, I don't want to get run over by other swimmers, what her subconscious mind was hearing herself say is get run over by other swimmers. Mm-hmm. So when you just listen to how many people, whether you're training them, you're working with them, who say, I don't want this to happen, I don't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. Where you want your personal life to be and how it intersects, that becomes important. How does this impact you? How do you get time to train? How do you figure it? But I will tell you that if you have the option to go out in this heat and run, as opposed to doing it visually, let's stop right there. Okay. Rather than doing it visually, you might realize that you could really train tonight if you wanted to, for whatever distance you want to run. So with the self-talk survey, when you fill this out for yourself, and what I tell people to do is fill this out and send it back to me. What do you hear yourself saying to yourself? Mm-hmm. So I would say to Hillary, what is Hillary overhear Hillary saying to Hillary when Hillary listens in on the conversations that Hillary is having with Hillary? What do you hear?
Are you asking me, or?
No, I'm using you as an example.
Oh, a good example.
No, but that basically it's a formula. What do you hear yourself saying to yourself? And then you look around in the situations. What situation are you in? I had a guy who ran a marathon, and I worked with him in that, and he had a problem of not finishing the marathons. And if he didn't think he was going to get the time he wanted, he would stop running. Well, what are you doing out there? Mm-hmm. But he would never tell me why and when he stopped, but he always stopped at the same time. So what's the message that he's giving himself? Or, you know, I've heard people say to me, and I could throw this out to people who run marathons. Everybody talks about hitting the wall. The wall is what, 23 miles, right? What if people started to write articles right now about hitting the wall at mile 31? When you get to that mile 31, it's unbelievable. You know, you hit the wall, so everybody is waiting for what mile am I at? Am I almost there? Am I almost there? What if you took the wall away? I don't know. But is the wall mental? Some people run through it, other people don't. I don't know. I've never run a marathon. But the point is that it relates back to other things in sports in particular. You know, I had a heavyweight prize fighter who said, you know, I am concerned I'm not going to get past the 4th round. So what do? We changed the time frame of the fight, and we had him have a knockout in round 3. So we visualized himself knocking out in round 3. So everybody has to look at this and how this applies to them. So the bike, what do you hear yourself saying to yourself about the bike? Transferring from one place to the other. My son ran the half Ironman in Manhattan some years ago. And it was a madhouse to get the bikes and changing and getting into the bike. So it was, how do you manage that? How do you talk to yourself about that? And then the question is when you talk about the way you talk to yourself, when does it start? Does it start when you buy the bike? Does it start every time you walk by the bike and it's in your garage and you go, oh my God, the bike part, you know? What is it? Is it your voice? What stops it? Is it always your voice? Is the negative self-talk always your voice? And do you have a switch to turn it on and off? Some people do and some people don't. The run, what do you hear yourself saying to yourself about the run? When does it start? What starts it? How long does it last? And the fact is, can you change the conversation? So you can talk to yourself differently. The other thing that's interesting about hypnosis and long competitions is the ability to distort time. I'm sure everybody has driven to some place. You can leave it right. You can leave it right there. People will drive to a location they've been to before, and I said, boy, we got here very fast. And other times you get on the road and it feels like it takes you forever. But there is a way to distort time, to make it seem like you have more than enough time to get someplace, particularly with business tasks and other tasks. You can distort time. You know, I've had some people who, a very funny story. I had a woman who came to me years ago who had to have surgery on her jaw. And she said to me, I'm going to be rehabbing. My jaw's going to be wired shut. I'm not going to be able to speak. I have to drink through a straw. And she said, I just want that to be over with. So what we did is we distorted time, so the time just seemed to go faster for her. So the time of the healing, she said to me, it feels like I was just operating on yesterday. But then she called me about 4 weeks later when she got back to work. She said, I have a problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, well, I was away recuperating. She said, I have all this work piled up on my desk. And she says, time's going way too quickly. I can't get to all this work. So we slowed the time down. So does it seem crazy? Yeah, but you know what? For the people who use it, it works. For those who don't even try it, it never works. You know, so it's how to look at these things. I'm wondering, do we have any questions from anybody at this point in time? But then I'll go over the wish list. Go ahead, Hillary.
So what I do, I don't know why I just got that echo. What I do is I go through the transitions. I set myself up in the transitions and I go through that whole thing, right? You know, that's the transition from the swim to the bike and then the bike to the run. Um, but I don't take myself through the entire event. I do a little bit, but not the entire thing. So how long do you think you should sit and think about that? Number one. And then second, my second question is, I think I've gotten maybe railroaded in the past thinking that I wasn't going to be able to finish an event in the time that was allotted. How do I overcome that, even though I know like I'm not a super athlete, right? So how do I overcome that time element?
Well,
So those are two questions.
who allots the time?
When you do a half Ironman or an Ironman, you only get a certain amount of time to do it, to complete it.
Okay. Well, I mean, did somebody come and drag you off the course when you went over the
They
time?
do, yeah,
They do.
yeah.
Well, with your level of training, is it ever possible that you could finish it in the allotted time?
I would just make it in the, maybe just make it in the allotted time, possibly. You know, I think
That,
it's, yeah,
that would mean you're almost near the end.
I definitely am at the end.
Well, the point is, I guess my point is that they would not allow you to finish it if you were 5 minutes off or 10 minutes off.
That's correct.
So they actually come.
I mean, you could finish it. You could, most of it, yeah. I mean, most of the time you get cut off at the bike and then they say you can't run. Sorry, you can't run. Or you finish the run, but if you don't finish within the time that's allotted, then you don't get a medal.
Oh, okay. And so if you stopped where they stopped you, you wouldn't get a medal.
Right.
Didn't finish in the allotted time, you wouldn't get a medal. But at the end of the day, you could finish the race yourself.
Correct. Well,
Okay, so
unless they take you off the bike, right? I mean, Nicole and Steve, you guys know better than that, than me.
Well, it depends on the race. Some races, like if there's a 2-loop run, they'll say you have to be starting the second loop at a certain time, and if you don't, they will actually take you off the course. I think if you've made it through that checkpoint, and you're not going to actually finish the race in the stated time, they won't like prevent you from crossing the finish line, but you probably won't get a medal. You won't be an official finisher. You'll be a did not finish, but you'll be able to run it out.
Well, I guess, you really go into these races, I imagine, you're racing against yourself. You're racing against your own time. I know that Jody races against herself, and she has her own standards. So the point is what can you do? See, the question is, can you identify anything that gets in your way? And then I have people work on those things individually. Increased concentration. You will begin to notice now, after today, and you'll be surprised to notice how much you listen to the way you talk to yourself. And it's either acceptable conversation or it's not. If you like what you hear, fine. If you don't like what you hear, I use this example, and it works a lot better with people from Long Island than any place else. But I say, if you park your car in the city at a valet, went to a show, came out, and you were driving to Montauk, you pick your car up, the guy gives you your car, and he has the worst music that you ever have heard in your life on the radio. What do? You turn it off. Or you change the station. Well, if you don't have another station, part of what we do is help people create another station. But the fact is that you don't ride with it until you get to Southampton and say, you know, this music is still playing. You do something to shut it off. So that's one way to shut it off. There's another way, using your peripheral vision, which seems to work very, very well in a whole wide variety of sports, hockey and running, is if you can, wherever you are right now, if you can focus on one thing in front of you, I don't care what it is, whether it's a can or a glass of, focus on that thing with your eyes as if they're a laser vision, and don't move your eyeballs. Nicole, you doing that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking, because I'm getting hungry watching you cook here, Nicole.
Oh, I thought I had my camera off.
No, you have to post, you have to post the recipe when you finish. So here's what you do. Focus on something right straight in front of you.
Okay.
And without moving your eyeballs, tell me what you're aware of out of your left peripheral vision. You got something?
Yeah.
Just aware of it. Don't move your eyeballs. What are you aware of out of your right peripheral vision? Get all those three things together. Whatever you get out of your right peripheral vision, whatever you get out of your left peripheral vision, and the thing you're focusing on intently in front of you, when you get all those three things together, you can't think of anything. Try it. Your mind shuts down. So now the question is, how do you use this? If you're running or you're biking, you focus straight in front of you, and if you just gradually move your peripheral vision out to the right and left, you find yourself controlling your mind game. Because I just had my catcher call me this morning. His brother's the pitcher. The brother is in junior and prep school, and he pitches at 90 miles an hour. Kid's amazing. But he said to me, my brother thinks too much. I worked with a guy from the Mets who said to me, concentration is thinking about absolutely nothing at just the right time. So it really pays for somebody to start to listen to what's distracting me from my performance. What's on this race course that does not belong here? And make sure that whatever's on the race course that doesn't belong there, you can remove it. You can either shut your mind down so you don't think about it with your tongue on the roof of your mouth, or anything else. The other thing is control distractions. What distracts you? And you'll also notice that you'll be a lot more aware of when you're distracted from whatever you're doing. You notice you're looking at something, and all of a sudden something distracts you. Oh, that distracts me. You can't control the distractions until you can identify them, but can you anticipate them on a race? Can coaches or people on the sidelines? I don't know. And it really becomes, Hillary, different for everybody. Every individual. So when every individual goes into a situation and tries to perform at their best, they have to find out what gets in their way. Develop a strong vision for the future. What does it look like? What does 2025 look like? There are people who set goals, and there are other people who dream. I would rather work on helping somebody with their dream. What's your dream? My dream is to run this triathlon, complete it at this time. What does a dream look like? Well, if you started to run that triathlon tonight, before you went to bed under hypnosis, you could probably finish it at the time you wanted to finish it, because you would run it at that time. I've had that happen with my swimmers. My swimmers will say, this is the time I want to run. I said, before you even imagine yourself diving into the pool, I want you to see the finish time at the end of the race. And it's astounding how often people get that time, or at least get closer and closer to the time. How are we doing so far? Any questions? Nope, okay. Anybody who wants to put questions can put them in the chat. Okay. Okay, wait a minute now. Don't go up too far. hang on a second. Okay, control anger and aggression. Anger is a big thing that can drag you off. You know, and so the fact is that all of these things, anger, aggression, distractions, should be left in the trunk of your car when you're running one of these races. And if you
Well,
can,
I'll be honest with you. When I'm angry and I'm playing golf, I'm hitting that ball so good.
okay, do you want to switch over to golf?
No, but I'm just saying.
Well, it's very interesting the amount of people who are using golf as a client attraction business development strategy. Because when you guarantee a golfer 3 to 6 strokes off their golf game without ever touching a club, guaranteed. Well, I'll just put that in. Anybody who wants to hear about that can call me. Controlled discomfort. You know, a lot of people say I'm in pain. Well, I always ask people who say they're in pain, is it pain or discomfort? And how to define that. And then the other thing too is, you know, people use these hybrid hypnosis strategies to take themselves from where they are to where they want to be. I mean, if you can visualize yourself running in the desert, then you can pretty much visualize and take yourself out to the desert. So if you enjoy running or surfing or swimming, I've had people who've been in a hospital and I said, where are you on? He said, I'd like to be at the beach. I said, what if I show you how to get to the beach? And I can show people how to get to the beach in about 30 seconds. And then the question is when do you want to come back? How long do you want to stay there? A personal strategic plan. What are subconscious blocks? I just wrote a little article today about a guy I worked with who was a real estate developer. And he's a golfer. And he said, I can't play well 50 yards in, but I'm a 12 handicap. I said, well, when can't you play well 50 yards in? He says, what we discovered after about 6 weeks, this was when he played against people who made more money than he did. Now, this guy makes high 7 figures. So you wouldn't think that he would be unconsciously intimidated by a wealthier person when he makes that kind of money, but he was. And then, you know, identify, resolve. So the fact is there some unconscious block that gets in your way? I don't know. Most often, a lot of the things that I discover with clients is invisible. They never see it. They never see it coming. So it's identify and overcome obstacles quickly. And then when they realize that what they can do is they can take all of these strategies and directly apply them to their business. So if we come down here, stay on this page. So the focus of all of this, and that Hillary and I have been talking about for years now, is giving people ways to instantly reduce their stress. I mean, I have people who just put their thumb and index finger together and their stress goes away. But that's all with a hypnotic suggestion. How to intensely and quickly focus is by eliminating distraction, identifying. You can spend the next week just identifying things that distract you. Also identifying control negative self-thoughts, the way you talk to yourself. Did you go, I tell my athletes, I said, you know, do you ever beat yourself up? Oh, I beat myself up all the time. I said, good. Well, once you engage me, you need my permission to beat the crap out of yourself. You know, you have to call me up and say, I just did this. Is it okay to beat myself up? Well, no, it's not. Preparation for competition depends on what the competition is, depends what needs to be done. You know, power visualization is important. Recovering quickly, you know, it's interesting when I deal with student athletes and they talk to me about getting jobs after school and performing well. I've found personally with my kids that they were free because they were all competitive athletes one way or another. People that hired them said, you know, one of the reasons I'm hiring you is because of the sport you're involved in, because you got knocked down, you got right back up again. And he said, I need people who just continue to get back up again, get back up again, get back up again. and make better use of coaching. I have found that coaches really can be fantastic, and some of them can be very destructive. I've had people who are self-serving coaches. I had a kid who had a scholarship to the University of Miami in Ohio to play hockey. And his agent called me and said, "I need your help." I said, "Why?" He said, "My client is in the Midwest in junior hockey with the most horrible, abusive coach, verbally abusive coach that you could ever imagine." I said, "So what do you want me to help you do?" He said, "I want you to help me prevent this kid's father from going out there and beating this guy with a baseball bat." But again, it's all kinds of stuff that gets in the way. But at the end of the day, it's a mind game. How do you look carefully at your mind game? And I can direct you to my websites. It's all on a link that are here. The videos and there's one for golf and a mind game. If anybody here happens to dabble in golf, you can look at that website. But again, it's really coming back and identifying what your game looks like and how you want to play it and what you want to be doing and how you want to perform. And then put yourself into a realistic training program to work that way. And I work with somebody who's going to lead you, as Hillary does, to a strategy to accomplish what you want. To finish your triathlon, to work well with people on the team. Any other questions, Hillary?
This was great, Dan. Thank you so much. Let me ask you guys who are on the call, do you think that you could use these strategies to help you improve your triathlon? Steve, I'll ask you since you're in the dark. Yes, he said yes. Good. That's good. What about you, Nicole?
You're muted, Nicole. Nicole, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I have to think about it more, but yeah, I'm sure there's definitely things in there I can use, like turning my thoughts around. Yeah. Like
I think we all get to that point where we think, oh, we're not as good or people are better, and that like psychs us out by thinking about these other people who are much better athletes or, that type of thing, or, am I going to fall on the bike, or what's going to, so all of that comes together. And I think this was really helpful, Dan.
Well, thank you. But, you bring up an interesting point. Am I going to fall on the bike means you, on some level, saying to yourself, I don't want to fall on the bike. I don't want to fall on the bike. Negative command. If you saw yourself finishing the bike part of the race over and over and over and over again before you competed, different story. And so, and there always is somebody better.
Right.
Always going to be somebody better. So you're not out there competing unless you're in
Right.
one.
You're competing against yourself is
yourself and trying to get yourself toward your dream. My dream time, my dream performance, my best time. And you can do a triathlon tonight at your best time under hypnosis. I mean, Jody used to run the Badwater probably in an hour and a half under hypnosis. See, at every stop, every place that she'd have to put on an ice hat.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. Steve writes, I find that endurance race become a mental game with myself. Avoiding distractions and staying focused is a big part of it. Yeah,
Right.
that's so true.
And
all right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'll put up your contact information in case anybody wants the information. And I'm also going to share this with the rest of the group who weren't able to attend.
Thank you. And then, just tell people there's no cost to call me and tell me what's going on. If you want to have something happen, we can figure it out. But the idea is to make the call and say, here's what I want to have happen. I'll go back and fill out the survey that Hillary gave you. It'll be very instructive to fill that out from your own perspective and see where you go with it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thanks a lot, Hillary.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dan. All right, have a good day, everyone.
Okay, great. Bye now.